Deep in the mountains lies an ancient, sprawling temple, silent, except for the wind whispering through the crumbling stonework. This was the Monastery of the Jade Dragon, once a place of peace, now a haven for shadows and secrets. The air hung heavy with the past. The scent of incense lingered, but the monks were long gone. Only their ghosts remained. The temple was a maze of courtyards and corridors, worn smooth by time and neglect. Sunlight struggled to penetrate the gloom, casting long, eerie shadows from the gnarled branches of ancient trees. The temple was a skeleton, stripped bare by the years, yet it possessed a strange beauty, a haunting reminder of past grandeur. The silence was broken only by the occasional cry of a bird or the rustling of leaves. But there were other sounds, too, for those who dared to listen. Whispers on the wind, soft, mournful cries that seemed to emanate from the very stones themselves, echoes of ancient sorrows trapped within the temple walls. The locals knew the stories. They spoke of a tragedy, a beautiful concubine, wronged and murdered. Her spirit, they said, still haunted the temple, seeking solace and vengeance. Few dared to venture near the ruined monastery. Those who did spoke of strange occurrences, cold spots, unexplained noises, and fleeting glimpses of a white-robed figure. The White Lady of the Jade Dragon Monastery. Her legend lived on. Her name was Xiaoli, a name whispered on the wind, a name etched in sorrow. She was the emperor's favorite, a delicate flower, her beauty legendary, her voice like a songbird. But beauty can be a curse. It attracted envy and treachery. The emperor's wife, consumed by jealousy, plotted against Xiaoli, accusing her of treason. The emperor, blinded by rage, ordered Xiaoli's execution. She was innocent, but her pleas fell on deaf ears. She was dragged to the temple, her cries echoing through the courtyards. They say she cursed the emperor and his lineage, condemning them to misfortune. Then she took her own life at the foot of the Jade Dragon statue, her blood staining the white marble crimson. The emperor, consumed by remorse, vanished. Some say he wandered the mountains searching for her spirit, seeking forgiveness, but he was never seen again. Xiaoli became the White Lady, a vengeful spirit trapped within the temple walls. Her cries for justice, her sobs of despair, they echoed through the years, a chilling reminder of her fate and the price of betrayal. Her tale was a warning, whispered by the wind, carried on the breeze to anyone who dared to listen. Chen, a young scholar, ignored the warnings. He was a seeker of truth, drawn to the mysteries of the past. He had heard the legends of the White Lady, of the Emperor's curse. He scoffed at superstition, believing only what he could see. He would spend a night in the temple to prove the stories false. He arrived as the sun began its descent, casting long shadows across the mountainside. The air grew noticeably colder, as if a chill had settled over the land. He took a deep breath, the air thick with the scent of decay and something else, something ancient and unseen. He pushed open the temple gates, their hinges groaning in protest. The sound echoed through the courtyard like a scream. He entered cautiously, his footsteps echoing on the stone floor. The silence was almost deafening, broken only by the beating of his own heart. He explored the temple, his flashlight cutting through the gloom. He saw the evidence of its former glory. Intricate carvings, faded murals, all slowly succumbing to the ravages of time. As darkness fell, the temple seemed to come alive. The shadows danced, whispers followed him, soft, mournful cries. He tried to ignore them, but fear gnawed at the edges of his courage. He pressed on, determined to see this through. He would not be swayed by imagination or ancient tales. He reached the inner sanctum where the Jade Dragon statue stood, its once bright colors now faded, streaked with grime and age. He felt a presence, cold and oppressive. The air grew heavy, difficult to breathe. He turned slowly, his flashlight beam cutting through the darkness, and then he saw her, a figure in white standing in the shadows, her back to him, her long black hair cascading down her back, almost reaching the floor. He froze, his blood turning to ice in his veins. The figure turned slowly, her face obscured by her hair. He saw a flash of white, a glimpse of her profile. It was a face of exquisite beauty but twisted with an unspeakable sorrow. She raised her hand, pointing a long white finger at him, and then she spoke, her voice a low, mournful whisper that seemed to emanate from the very walls themselves. "You should not be here." He tried to speak, but no words came out. His tongue felt thick and heavy. His mind raced, trying to make sense of what he was seeing. Was this real, or a figment of his imagination? The figure glided towards him, her feet not seeming to touch the ground. He stumbled back, his heart pounding in his chest. He wanted to run, but his legs refused to obey him. He was rooted to the spot, paralyzed by fear. As she drew closer, he could see her face more clearly. Her skin was pale, almost translucent, her eyes dark pools of sadness. "Leave this place," she whispered, her voice filled with a deep, abiding sorrow. "Leave this place and never return." And then, as quickly as she had appeared, she vanished, melting back into the shadows, leaving Chen alone. The next morning, Chen awoke with a start. The sun streamed through the temple's broken roof. Had it all been a dream? He questioned, shaken but resolute. He explored further, finding an old, hidden chamber. Dust-covered scrolls lay scattered. He carefully unrolled one. His heart skipped a beat. It was Xiaoli's diary, penned in elegant calligraphy. He spent hours poring over the faded script, each word a brushstroke of pain, of betrayal. Xiaoli's words painted a vivid picture of her life, her love for the emperor, the empress's jealousy, the false accusations, and the despair that had driven her to take her own life. But there was something else, something that sent chills down Chen's spine. Xiaoli wrote of a secret, a hidden document. That proved her innocence. It was hidden within the temple. She pleaded for someone to find it, to clear her name, to bring the truth to light. Chen closed the diary, his mind awhirl. He now understood the depth of Xiaoli's sorrow, and the injustice that bound her spirit to the temple. He knew what he had to do. He searched tirelessly, driven by a newfound purpose. He scoured every corner, every nook and cranny of the temple. Days turned into nights. He barely slept, haunted by Xiaoli's sorrowful eyes. He could feel her presence around him, sometimes a whisper on the wind, sometimes a cold spot in the air. But he was no longer afraid. He felt a strange kinship with the White Lady, a shared desire to right a wrong that had lingered for centuries. He found it, hidden deep within the Jade Dragon statue, a small compartment, concealed from view. Inside, a silk-wrapped package. He carefully unwrapped it, his fingers trembling with anticipation. It was a document, bearing the Emperor's seal. He unrolled it, his heart pounding in his chest. It was a confession, written by the Empress on her deathbed. She admitted to framing Xiaoli. Driven by her own jealousy and rage, she begged for forgiveness, but it was too late for Xiaoli. Chen felt a surge of triumph. He had found the proof of Xiaoli's innocence. He could finally set her spirit free. He hurried back to the inner sanctum, where he had first encountered the White Lady. He could sense her presence, stronger than ever. He knelt before the Jade Dragon statue, holding the document aloft. "Xiaoli," he called out, his voice echoing in the silence. "I have found it, the proof of your innocence." A cold wind swept through the temple. The air grew heavy with anticipation, and then she appeared, standing before him, her face no longer obscured by her hair. Her features were etched with centuries of sorrow, but in her eyes, he saw a flicker of hope. He read aloud the Empress's confession, his voice echoing through the silent temple. As he spoke, he saw a change in Xiaoli. The sorrow that had clung to her like a shroud began to dissipate, replaced by a glimmer of peace. When he finished reading, a single tear rolled down Xiaoli's cheek. It was a tear of gratitude, of release. She reached out a hand. Her touch was cold, but not unpleasant. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice filled with emotion. "You have given me peace, but my spirit is bound to this place. I cannot leave." Chen knew what he had to do. He recalled an ancient ritual described in one of the scrolls, a ritual to release a bound spirit. It was dangerous, but he was determined to help Xiaoli find peace. He gathered the necessary materials, candles, incense, a small wooden boat. He arranged them carefully in the temple courtyard, his hands moving with a practiced grace. As he worked, he felt Xiaoli's presence beside him, watching him, guiding him. When everything was ready, he lit the candles, their flames flickering in the night air. He lit the incense, its sweet aroma filling the air. He closed his eyes and began to chant, the words ancient and powerful. They seemed to vibrate in the air around him. He felt a surge of energy flowing through him. He opened his eyes and saw that Xiaoli was surrounded by a soft white light. She looked at him, her eyes filled with gratitude, and then she stepped into the small wooden boat. The boat began to glow, the light intensifying until it was almost blinding. Chen shielded his eyes. When he could look again, the boat was gone, and so was Xiaoli. The temple was silent. The air felt lighter, cleaner, as if a great weight had been lifted. Chen knew that Xiaoli was finally at peace, her spirit freed from its earthly bonds. He had fulfilled his promise, and in doing so, he had encountered a power beyond his understanding. Chen left the temple the next morning, the rising sun casting long shadows behind him. He looked back at the ancient structure. Its walls no longer seemed oppressive, but rather, they seemed at peace. He carried the memory of Xiaoli with him. Her story a reminder of the enduring power of truth and the importance of righting past wrongs. He returned to the village. His hair, once black as night, was now streaked with white, a physical manifestation of his encounter with the supernatural. He told the villagers of Xiaoli's innocence, of the Empress's confession, and of the ritual that had set her spirit free. Some dismissed his tale as madness. Others listened with a newfound respect for the old temple. The monastery of the Jade Dragon remained abandoned, yet it was no longer a place of fear. The whispers on the wind now held a hint of peace, a gentle reminder of the White Lady, who had finally found rest, and Chen, the scholar who had dared to listen to the echoes of the past. He carried the memory of that night with him, a secret burden and a chilling truth. Some stories, even in their ending, never truly fade away.